Namo Om Vishnu Padhaya Krishna Pushtaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachaline Nivasisha Sunyavahari Pashtatade Shatarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Okay, so welcome those who just joined us. Hare Krishna, Namo Sahachari, Namo Chandrika, Hare Krishna. So let's dive in. Now, okay, any questions to begin with? Oh, Hare Krishna, put you on the spot. So let's just a quick review. I've just been looking at this and the last few slides, and I'm thinking perhaps it might have been a bit complicated for devotees to understand, because we're speaking about the semblance of devotion. Now, this week we are going to move on to pure devotion. But just in case it was a little bit confusing, what we was describing was a traditional varnashram or a traditional setting which may take place over many lifetimes in the matter of a semblance of devotion. And we mentioned going through the different Nishkam Kama Mishra Bhakti and then Sakam Mishra Bhakti, etc., through these different stages. So just to summarize it, um, as we spoke last week, really it is these different stages going through the different developments of Sakam Karma Yoga, Nishkam Karma Yoga. I mean, it's interesting to know, it's interesting to understand, but really, where we we have been given by the grace of Srila Prabhupada, we have been given directly the practice of pure devotional service. Yeah, so that's what we're going to be looking at here today. So that's what I'm just going to look at it. Going on to pure faith. Yeah. So that's why I asked in the beginning. Everyone's got any questions about the semblance of devotion, you can ask. But if that's kind of clear as it can be, um, let's go on to Shraddha, this pure faith. So so we want to practice pure devotional service. Obviously, that's what we want to do. So to practice it, we have to have pure faith. And this pure faith, basically, is a verse that describes pure faith that we've quoted a few times. That means you just have complete dependence upon Krishna. Your life is completely surrendered unto Him. You have faith in Krishna. You have faith that He's going to maintain you. Yeah. Prabhupada calls it faith in something sublime. And the most sublime thing is Krishna. So persons who are atheistic or persons who don't have faith, they find it hard to relate to those who do have faith in God. So say the faith in Krishna. Yeah, they find it hard to relate because they cannot have faith, because they cannot see, because they had no experience of devotion towards Krishna or God. Then they cannot commit themselves to, and they cannot practice. I mean, that's why people don't take up devotional service because they don't have faith in it. They actually don't have faith that everything is going to be taken care of, not just spiritually, but also materially. But devotees, we have, by the grace of Prabhupada, we've been introduced to the practice of pure devotional service. So hopefully, well, we're about to see from this study, that pure faith. That's that's what leads to pure devotional service. See, if you have pure faith, you can practice pure devotional service. So we see these different stages um, here. Different state. These are actually different stages of love. Also, we've got prema here, right at the top. They are described by Rupa Goswami describes this as this like the thickening stages of, you can describe it like thickens, that this pure faith, it thickens in stages till it gets to prema. Yeah. And also Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, he describes devotion in terms of um, visible symptoms. And that's what you see here, the visible symptoms of developing love within. One can identify. Yeah, so, and as we heard many times, this is not something that comes from outside, it comes from inside. That's what's quite mysterious. It's wonderfully mysterious about um, devotion or love or Krishna consciousness. It very much feels like a homecoming. And many describe it like that. It's the most reassuring, I could say, reassuring experience that the soul can possibly have because it's one's original nature. That's why it's so sublime because it's one's original nature. It's not something that's coming from outside. So, and this is within not just human beings, actually. It's within every jiva. Although the human beings, we have the great opportunity with our intelligence and our ears is to engage in a process where we can revive this original love for Krishna. And so this is the teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who says it's latent in all living entities. Yeah. And it's this verse. I was going to put it up on the slide, but I didn't. I thought perhaps I could, but it's a nice verse. You may have heard of it. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sabha Kabanoi Shravanadi Sudhe Chitte Koro Udoy. So it can be awakened, this Nitya Siddha Prema. This Krishna Prema is Nitya, Nitya Siddha. Not that we are Nitya Siddhas, it means it's situated in the heart and it can be developed by a Shravanadi and it can purify the heart. Yeah. So again, so this development of pure devotion now it's gradually awakened. So, and as it's awakened, then one's, you could say, one's lust for material things, for the material world, it gradually becomes extinguished. Yeah. So Marge mentions here that, in other words, when pure faith emerges, it's different when one's going through the different stages of semblance of devotion. Because in the different stages of semblance of devotion, one is more or less cleansing away their material attachments. But when one has pure faith, one is developing attachment to Krishna. So they're cleansing lust. So it's changing from cleansing lust to developing attachment to Krishna. Yeah. So, and we mentioned last week this I-ness and my-ness, janusyamoho ahammameti. Yeah. So prior to this pure faith, one may be in a mode of goodness and knowledge may destroy this I-ness and my-ness, but it's not going to develop even a hint of love of Krishna. For that, you have to have pure faith. You have to be here. You have to be It can't be a semblance of devotion. You have to be practicing pure devotion in order for love to develop, in order to go through these stages. So remember, so we spent quite some time speaking about the semblance of devotion. But now, just to be clear, we're actually starting here. And this is when love can start to develop. It's when we're practicing this pure devotion. So it's no longer a semblance of devotion, but still there's some way to go, and we're going to look at that. Um, yes. So this pure devotion, as we practice it, hopefully it's going to weaken the influence of the modes of nature. Yeah. And we're going to develop a different identity. We're going to more identify ourselves as being the servant of Krishna. And that gets quite, that itself and is quite a science and quite a discussion where one actually accepts themselves as a servant of Krishna. Yeah. So that means they're not identifying, we're not, we're more aligned with being Krishna's servant than we are being a grandma. Hope you don't mind, because I'm looking at some grandmas here, or a granddad, or a brother, or a sister, or a son, or male, or female, or fat, or thin. Yeah, more we're becoming more conscious of the fact that we are Krishna's servant. So it changes. Yeah. So the false ego means we identifying ourselves with this body, and therefore we very much identify ourselves with particular attachments that come with this body, etc. But as we practice pure devotional service, gradually that dissipates. So that's it, basically dissipates false ego. Then we are awakened to our original state as a loving servant of Krishna. Yeah, we don't identify with the country, Bom, HD, X, etc. But it's but it's in proportion. But it's happening because one's developing love for Krishna. And so it's dissipating the false ego. So this is the practice of pure devotional service. So just a note here that if you're practicing pure devotional service, it doesn't mean um, you may still have anatas in the heart. Because don't forget, we're just speaking about this here, Shraddha here. We're going to discuss about sadhu sangha, bhajan kriya, and anartha nivritti. So a pure devotee will have anatas. That makes sense? Because they're not practicing a semblance of devotion. They've given themselves to the process of pure devotional service, sharanagati. Yeah. They're not practicing a semblance, they're practicing pure devotion and the principles of sharanagati. So they're developing the love. So that's going to dissipate the anatas. It's not like a semblance of devotion may bring you to the mode of goodness, and you may have some knowledge, but it's not going to develop love. So you have to make that step of surrendering to Krishna, taking up the process of being completely dependent upon Him. And that's a lot of the preaching that we do. It's to bring people, sometimes gradually, but we're introducing them into the principle of just depending upon Krishna. Krishna's your friend. Yeah, if you're in anxiety, pray to Krishna, chant Krishna's holy name. Don't worry, Krishna's your well wisher. So we're showing, we're to explain to people what is pure devotion, so that they can practice it. So we are practicing pure devotion, and that's going to develop love, and that's going to dissipate the false ego. Yeah, and because we have these two quite extreme identities. One is our conditioned state, and one is ultimately the perfected state. Yeah. So in our conditioned state, our identity is very much around the body. I said, yeah, and things, everything related to the body. Um, but and then that's the mis now that is the soul's natural affection for Krishna that's been misdirected because of misidentification. So the affections that we have for this body and everything related to this body, that all should be for Krishna. And so as we develop in pure devotion, as this love develops, then that's going to, yeah, it's going, the natural affection for Krishna and Krishna's devotees will arise. Yeah. So it's yeah, so-called love, and yes, this so-called love in the material world is actually calm. It's actually lust. What's that verse? Chaitanya Charitamrita. You don't know that verse? Um, Kamendriya Priti Vanchi Tari Bari Kam, Krishnendriya Priti Tari Bari, perhaps a few Tari Bari Kam, Krishna Priti, something like that. I have to revisit this verse. So love is in relationship to Krishna, and lust is in relationship to material enjoyment. So yeah, so so-called love is actually in the material, it's actually calm, it's actually lust. Yeah. So the real sense of, so it's corrected. So a real a real identity manifests itself, and our perverted sense of I and mine is corrected. So I mean, I am Krishna's servant. Yeah. So ultimately, Krishna is mine, mamata, ahanta. I am Krishna's servant. Yeah. So this is this point. Yeah, let me just read this here. The following study correlates the awakening of love to the spiritualizing of the sense of I-ness and mineness. So yes, it reveals to mixed devotees. So yeah, it's going to be what we're going to be studying now is this spiritualization, is the awakening of love. And it's going to spiritualize the concept of I-ness and mindness towards Krishna. You know? So also it's going to be quite revealing because it's going to reveal, because okay, so one is not practicing a semblance of devotion, one is practicing pure devotional service, but that pure devotional service may be mixed. Yeah, so we've got to get through all these different stages. So it's not a semblance anymore, but still it may be mixed. Yeah, so this study, hopefully it's going to reveal how Maharaj mentions here, how their bhakti differs. It reveals how mixed devotees, how their bhakti differs from pure devotees. Okay? It is I'm not confusing anyone, am I? We understand. Basically, pure devotees take up devotional service in order to obtain love of Krishna. Yep. So it'd be quite valuable at the different stages, how it actually manifests, so that we can see in an authorized way, which we can measure one's degree of attachment to Krishna. And so, so again, it begins with this pure faith, and that's generally awakened after, it can awaken in different ways. This pure faith can be awakened through a semblance of devotion, and gradually one associates with devotees. It can awaken, yeah, unknowingly. That's called agata sukriti. We mentioned that a few times. Um, so basically, there's no hard and fast rules. So it may appear itself spontaneously. Swabhaviki. So that spontaneously is actually due to previous agnata sukriti. So it may, even before coming in contact with devotees in this life, that faith may manifest. If it does, it's because of association with devotees in a previous life. Swabhavaki. Yeah. We see that people who have got, even before reading the books, even before having strong association with devotees, they quickly relate and take up to the practice of complete dependence upon Krishna. So that would be coming from a previous life. Sometimes it may come, this pure faith may come by strong preaching of Vaishnavas, just like Prabhupada, such an exalted devotee, such a powerful devotee. So his preaching would inspire pure faith. So it may have been previously acquired, but then it quickly ripens by hearing from a Vaishnava. You know? So yeah, so basically, however it does awaken, it makes someone eligible for pure devotion. And that's and its perfection. So this is the verse here. Perhaps Alexander, you could read this verse for us, please.
Yeah. What is it? Oh, this in front.
Yeah, on the slide there.
If somehow or other, by good fortune, one develops faith in hearing and chanting my glories, such a person being neither very disgusted with nor attached to material life, should achieve perfection through the path of loving devotion to me.
Yeah. So somehow or another, we just mentioned how it might happen. That somehow or another. Okay, there's many ways it can happen that one comes to this platform of pure faith. But somehow or other, either by good fortune, one develops faith in hearing and chanting my glories. Yeah. So this is, you can see you can see it manifesting, as Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, is when a person develops trust in the imports or in Bhagavad Gita or in Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah. They got faith in it. Like, I guess I don't know, I might guess I must have practiced or come in contact with devotees in my last life. I don't know. But when I first read Bhagavad Gita, for me, I took it as an authority. Yeah, Prabhupada's words were so convincing. It didn't take much for me to believe it was the absolute truth, you know. Um, so, but, and I desired to become a devotee, but I didn't have much. So I had that much of faith, but I didn't have really understanding of what the scriptures truly meant. So someone may have faith in Bhagavad Gita, but they don't really know what's in it. They got faith. They got faith in the Gita, they got faith in the Srimad Bhagavatam, but they don't really know the deep import of it. Well, what it truly means. Yeah. And I don't really understand, like when I was first reading Bhagavad Gita in my bedsit many years ago. Yeah. I didn't know what sadhana bhakti was about. Yeah. All I understood, actually, when I started, when people start associating with devotees, I just understand that one should chant Hare Krishna. And that's going to save me. I don't know what's the Bhagavad Gita. I don't know what's Srimad Bhagavatam, but I have faith in it. You may not know what the process of sadhana bhakti is, but one may have got faith in the Holy Name, and that's the saving grace. At this stage, that's one's saving grace and and the prasadam. So chanting the Holy Name. So they've got faith in it. We got faith in the Gita, got faith in Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah. But they don't understand really the process of bhakti. Yeah. But and they chant the holy name, and that's one's saving grace. Yeah. So that's why um this is the beginners in Krishna consciousness. They got faith in Gita, got faith in, but they don't understand what's really in it. They don't understand what is actually sadhana bhakti. Yeah, so that's called prakrita bhakta. They're also called a materialistic devotee. Yeah, because they may still identify with their body and identify themselves as being a product of the material world. So they got faith in the scripture, but it hasn't really, they don't know it. And they're still identified with the body very much. Yeah. So, of course, it can come in different, it's different for everyone, but it may follow everyone's coming to pure devotion and practicing pure devotion. It may be, it's not exactly the same, but it follows these general principles. So for them, for some, it might be that devotional service is not really a way of life. It's a religion. Yeah, it's not really my life. Yeah. I will continue one may at this point a Prakata Bhakta, a materialistic devotee, that may continue with my being attached to my worldly duties, so to speak. And I chant Hare Krishna. I chant Hare Krishna. Let me take up chanting. Yeah. Um, yeah, Maharaj mentions here the attitude of neophytes towards spiritual life is like those of separatists in the sense that they cannot see things in connection with the Lord. They see Krishna only in the deity, yeah, and they only see the spiritual masters as Vaishnavas. They don't recognize that there's Vaishnava, they don't appreciate Vaishnavas. They appreciate those who are sitting on the chair, those who are sitting on the chair and talking and giving class. They appreciate them, but they don't really understand. They do not understand, they cannot see and really appreciate all the Vaishnavas, and they just focused on the deity. Yeah, that's called Kanishta Adhikari. Yeah. So therefore, the interactions with others may not be so nice. Yeah. Um, yeah. Maharaj then quotes Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, says that because the neophytes possess weak faith, so the Shraddha, they got faith. What's komal is very weak. So he mentions that's the smallest currency by which to purchase the Maha Mantra. Yeah. Because they don't have this firm faith, they do not have the firm will to chant attentively. Yeah, so generally the chanting at this stage is going to be namaparad, it's going to be offensive. Yeah. And also their hearing is going to be, when they're hearing, they got some faith in the books, in the Bhagavad Gita, but their hearing is going to be very selective and it's going to be very restricted. Yeah. You can see that in young devotees and those who are just coming to devotion and they're hearing a class. You can almost see that they accept this, they don't accept. Yeah, yeah, no, 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 I don't accept that. Yeah, I accept that. I accept this. No, I don't accept that. You can almost see it in their eyes. I can, yeah, they are choosing what they believe or not believe because they've still got strong material attachments. So they're choosing. So they're very selective of so their ability to hear the teachings of devotion, so it's very selective and it's restricted. Yeah. You can see that as there's one boy here, he's come with the boys to Mayapur and he's a relative, I think he's a new devotee. They're trying to get him shaved up. He's good. He's come with the brahmacharis here. You can see he's hearing the classes. You can see there's a lot going on inside the mind, whether I accept all of this or not. He is still deciding. Of course, being in Mayapur is pretty powerful experience. So you can see he's getting purified, but you can see he's still deciding what to believe on, not to believe. Like at this stage, at Kanishta, one of those that have deep faith in the scriptures, you've got to be careful when you start speaking about, for instance, the structure of the universe, and there's four elephants holding up the universe. Then they choose, oh no, no, sorry, I don't believe that. Okay, I chant Hare Krishna and I'll eat prasadam with you, but I don't believe that. That's an example. Um, yeah, so they have here, yeah, they've just crossed the threshold into Shraddha. They've just crossed over and they've begun to uncover this, just beginning to uncover their identity as Krishna's servant. It's just beginning. It's just beginning. They've still got a strong sense of I and mine. Um, so their love is very, so it's love, again, it's love, but it's very weak. And they're slightly, and they have very, at this stage, they have very little, what's the word? Eligibility. What's the word for eligibility? Adhikar to practice devotional service. Yeah, they're slightly eligible. So there's Prakrita, we're speaking about Prakrita Bhakta and Kanishta Adhikari. Slight qualification. Yeah. Now, the only thing that's generally going to keep them from sliding back into gross material life, and that's the mercy of the devotees, the mercy of the Vaishnavas. Yeah, Maharaj quotes here Srila Prabhupada from the fourth canto. Without the association of devotees, one cannot advance in a Krishna consciousness. That's why it's so important to give newcomers association. So important that we can identify and give devotees association and give the newcomers association, engage them in association of devotees. Otherwise, that is a good chance they're going to just drift back into material life. And we see it. Yeah. But if they stay in the company of devotees, even though they have these doubts, even though they only accept some things they're hearing and reject other things they're not hearing, even though they don't really identify, they only give some respect to the person sitting on the seat or the person everyone bows down to, you know, even though they can't chant attentively, if they stay in the association of Vaishnavas, their future's bright. Yeah. If they stay. Yeah. They're on the path of perfection if they stay in association of the devotees. And we all know that, isn't it? When you know someone's not associating with devotees anymore, we all know it's the end of their spiritual life, isn't it? We may not say it, but if someone stops associating with devotees, yeah, that's a sure sign. Yeah. It's a sure sign that they're giving up the practice of devotional service. Yeah. Of course, some devotees might be circumstantially in a situation where they're not able to associate with devotees. That's something different. You know. Yes, so there's, yeah, Marge mentions here, by such a future, but such a future, however bright, it has its challenges. Yeah, it has its challenges. So we're speaking now about we're going up to, yeah, Anata Nivriti. It has its challenges. Yeah, so there is unpleasant task of facing unwanted habits. And that brings us into chapter 16. Okay. Any questions about that? I think, okay, we're all on the right page. We know where we're going. 1 second. Okay. So we're going to start here. Unsteady devotional service. Okay, so we come from the semblance of devotion. We've stepped into um, practicing being exposed to the principles of pure devotion. One is the Prakrita Bhakta at this stage. One is the Kanishta Adhikari. Um, so chapter 15, we describe from semblance of devotion up to the attainment of pure faith and the association of pure Vaishnavas. Yeah. So this we're going to describe here in this chapter, the beginning of devotional service in practice, but not including the stage of steadiness. Okay, we're going to speak up. We're going to describe the beginning of devotional service in practice, but up to not including nishta. So as the title says, so like unsteady devotional service. Yeah. So this means there's presence of unwanted habits. That's anatas. Yeah. It's something which they linger like ghosts. Even someone with pure faith, they got pure faith in the process. They got pure faith. They've given themselves to Krishna, but still, the unwanted habits, mental habits, or um, weaknesses still linger like ghosts in the heart, even if someone has got pure faith in Krishna. Yeah. Um, but Maharaj brings out here that we cannot afford not to deal with these unwanted habits. We have to, part of here, we have to identify them and root them out. So, so we have to know how to identify them and how to recognize the effects. So we're going to go through that here now. Yeah, Marge says here, and how to monitor their presence through the stages of pure devotional service in practice. Yeah. How to recognize their effects. So one, for instance, let's just say lust. One may be, had licentious or sensual experiences before they join. I guess, one is still carrying it through the practice. Okay, one is now practicing devotional service in association of devotees, but still that anatta is there. So how to recognize the effects, how to monitor the presence through the different stages of pure devotion service in practice, so it becomes purified. So we all know where we're going here. It's getting a bit exciting. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he mentions there's 4 types of anartas. There's aparad, offenses, asatrishna, material desires, hridaya, dubhaya, weakness of heart, and also misunderstanding of spiritual truths. Yeah. So 4 types of anartas. He analyzes it in this way. So look at each of these. Okay. So makes up unsteady devotional service. We have to come through this stage to get to nishta. Yeah. We have to come through. So here, offenses. So there's 4 types of offenses. So 4 types of anartas. Now we're looking at offenses. So obvious one, offenses to the holy name. We have to get through that to get to steady devotional service. Offenses to the deity form of the Lord, seva aparad. Offenses to devotees. jiva prad, offenses to other living entities. That's going to stop us. We got to get through this stage to get to, we've got to be free of these, get to steady devotional service. Yeah. And he mentioned the four types of material desire. Now, I don't know why I had this slideshow prepared a good few years ago. Why I put this picture, I don't know. I think he's desiring mystic powers. Okay, then, so we got now here four types of material desire. We mentioned four types of offenses. Four types. We're going to elaborate more on these by just giving them titles here. Material desire. Desire for material objects. Yeah. For stuff. A desire for material objects. Desire for heavenly comforts. Desire for mystic powers. Desire for liberation. Yeah, Rupa Goswami describes this as well, desire for liberation and enjoyment, bhakti and mukti, as being witches on the path. Yeah. So desire for material objects. Some of these things we can dovetail. You may have a desire for something, but if you use it in the service of the Lord. Yeah, so desire, because materialists desire material objects. We desire Krishna, but we live a life in such a way, we have a situation that we can practice devotional service in. So desiring a place to live is okay. Yeah, we have to do that. But not like the gross materialist, just collecting material objects, desiring for heavenly comforts, for mystic powers, or for liberation. Yeah. So the four weaknesses of heart, du, dubhalyam, envy. So you could say this is more, you could say external. Okay, this is more internal, weakness of heart. Alexander G, you had a question?
Yeah, I have a question about desires. What if a devotee has a subtle desires, but he doesn't act upon it? Is that considered as desire? If
Well,
it's
that's
not.
one of the principles of anatta nivritti. If you have a subtle desire and you identify it, and it's not favorable to devotional service, but you don't act according to it, then you will get purified of it. Yeah, if it's not favorable. Generally, and it will come from your previous life, from not previous lifetime, no, from your time before you took up devotional service. You've embedded certain material desires, subtle and gross, within the heart, deeply embedded on it by meditating upon it day after day. And you come and you take up devotional service, you come into association with devotees, and those deep embedded impressions and desires come up. But then that's why it's important that one has a strong sadhana. It's important that one reads and one can understand what is favorable and what is not favorable. Yeah. Then one can reject that. It comes up within the heart, but because you're well situated in the practice of sadhana, you can identify it and you can ignore it. Then eventually, it's like a test in one sense. Okay, you want to practice, do you want to come, you want to practice devotional service, but okay, so what about this in the heart? And you can say that's the quest, that's the path that we follow, as devotees of the Lord, as practitioners. Yeah. Is that okay, Alexander? So yeah, so it may be subtle. If it's subtle design, it's still there. Is there anything else on that? Was that the question you was?
That's all. Yeah.
Answer?
So by practice, that unwanted desire ultimately disappears.
Well, yeah,
Just
but it depends what it is. It may have to be purified. Yeah, may have to be purified, and then you may be then it may disappear. Say, for example, one has always been in the association of the opposite sex, and they cannot. It's still it is within their heart. It's still there. They cannot envision themselves living without that association. Yeah. Now, okay, they can get purified of it, maybe through development of knowledge and then detachment, but they may not be able, they may need to experience that in a devotional setting. Yeah, say the Grihastha ashram. And then the idea of that is that at some point they're going to get, they're going to, by practicing devotional service in that way, they will get purified of that in a natural way as well. So it really, so that's why association with devotees is very important. For what's coming up in the heart, we want to make sure that we're getting purified of it and we're doing it systematically, that we're uprooting. And it may be it is very scientific sometimes. You have to go about it in a very careful way. Yeah. Is okay? Yeah.
yes.
So, yeah, desire for material objects, heavenly comforts, mystic powers, liberation. Envy. Yeah, so Dulabham. It may even say this envy of other Vaishnavas. This is weakness of heart. Yeah. Desire for fame, Tarangarangini, or being deceitful and fault finding. This is all symptoms of unsteady devotion. Okay, you may be wearing tilak every day and have a sari on and have a dhoti or come to the temple, but if these things are going on, you are practicing unsteady devotional service. It's quite purifying, isn't it, to hear this?
Yeah, I wanted to ask on that as well.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Like even if we have even a one desire, we cannot go back, right? We have to get that fulfilled. So how to day running, how can we work? How can we understand our desires and work on them?
Well, we don't. Again, you said yeah, we understand that we really have to want to go back to Godhead, and we can't want anything here in the material world. Nothing.
Mhm,
It should be Tom and Kinchana Gocharaha. Yeah.
mhm, mhm,
So as we're describing, so there should be you should desire nothing. If you don't desire anything else, then you're not going to come back. Yeah,
mm,
go back to Godhead. But if you're desiring, it means you are desiring. It's like you actually want something still.
mm,
Yeah.
mm.
So the question is how to deal with that.
Yeah, questions like desires are going to be having desires. We've got to make sure that we're having spiritual desires and not material desires.
Yeah, you kind of answered the question. Because that's the idea is
Trying to figure them out every day. I'm trying to figure on my thoughts.
yeah, because the idea is as we develop in devotional service, it gets very personal, and we develop desires like the inhabitants of Vrindavan, ultimately, or we just desire Krishna in a very strong way. And as that desire to please Krishna becomes stronger, then obviously all other lesser desires are going to evaporate. So it's not as if it depends. Not as if you just by the practice of pure devotional service in of itself and hearing and chanting about Krishna, one's going to develop a desire to serve Krishna. So we don't get rid of desire, that we just replace desire. So in the meantime, we may have to isolate unfavorable desires. They may still be there. So we follow strictly the regulative principles. And they may still haunt us like a ghost, as we mentioned before. But as we develop in affection and love, and we start developing desire, specific desires to serve Krishna, then that's going to, it's like when you, let's give an example, you have a cup of water and it's colored and you put another, I think you put some more and it dissipates the original water. So the idea, I mean, that's why the idea just desiring to cook for Krishna, desiring to clean the temple, desiring to distribute books, it's all transforming, it's all flooding out material desire. Even though it may be mixed sometimes, I want to distribute 10 books or 100 books because I might get some fame. So that's where it might be mixed, but it's good. It's better than this, it's because it's connected to devotional service. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like you read something about Krishna, pastimes, this and that, and you like feel, oh, I wish I was there, wish, and then you go into a state when, oh, why did I make such a mistake of coming here?
Yeah.
Like
That's
that.
it.
So
I mean, that's exactly it. And that has to go eventually, that has to go really, really deep. And it's not just really, really deep to you actually cry. That's Gorgorina, it's a crying school, where it's actually, I can explain it. This is a stages of advanced devotional service where it's actually it's so deep that it's burning you. You so much desire to be with Krishna. Such a strong desire. Now that's gonna be so in the beginning, it's just reading. Yeah, oh, that sounds great. I really wish I was there. It's kind of a bit external. But as we get more purified, that desire gets more profound and deeper and deeper and deeper. And then that's the whole practice of developing separation, Ripalamba, separation. Then that's the other whole discussion where you're transiting from from a regulated practice to a more desire that's coming from your heart. That's called more of a spontaneous raganuga sadhana, where you're developing these sentiments of the resonance of Vrindavan. Yeah.
mm,
And there's a whole science to that as well, is developing that desire. You kind of hear how the great devotees desire Krishna. And you take pictures of that in your heart and you meditate upon that. Yeah. We've just transited to Raganuga sadhana. Alexander G, you had a question?
I have a question about the fault finding, because I
Yeah.
find this the fourth probably the most difficult for a lot of people, especially for therapists or counselors, because they almost cultivate this habit of almost immediately diagnosing people with things, oh, he's like this, he's narcissist, he's that, he's this. And so I was wondering, how do you find a healthy balance, cultivate a healthy balance of favorable fault finding for the sake of either protecting yourself or um, avoiding specific things, such as you know, uh,
Yeah, well, you may be in a Pacific, you may be in if you're in a Pacific situation or position where it may be a duty, you may be guiding someone, you may be mentoring someone. So so it should be, what's the word? It should be constructive. It's constructive. like the spiritual master's duty to find fault with the disciple. That's the duty of the spiritual master. But it's done for a specific purpose of helping them to prepare to go back to the spiritual world. Yeah. But fault finding in of itself, which generally may come from envy, it may come from weakness of heart. Yeah, we basically we don't want to be in the practice of it. We should try to avoid the practice of it. We may find ourselves doing it in certain association. Like, yeah, you may experience that where you're with a certain devotee and you start speaking politics and you start speaking about this, that, and it's kind of you're together, you're finding fault. You're identifying how the temple president is not a perfect Paramahamsa. And you're discussing it. And you have no, it's really, I mean, you're not in the duty, you're not in a position of authority, you're not in a position. But again, you have to be, if someone is not acting correctly, that's something else. But we should want to avoid it. We should try to avoid persons who we associate with and we just end up speaking badly about people. We try to associate with devotees who are speaking positively. Yeah, there's one devotee, he always wants to speak with me, and uh, every time he's because I'm one of my services a DD worship rep for the UK and parts of Europe. So then this devotee always seeks me out, and every time he seeks, I know what he's going to say. Every time he's just going to find all these faults with this and that. Last time I told him, look, every time you speak to me, you tell me how bad everyone is in the Pacific Temple. So please, can you tell something positive? And he got it. I mean, I don't think he's a nice devotee, but and the point I'm trying to make is we have to be, okay, we have a tendency to find fault. So avoid it. Preach to yourself. Find what's good in devotees. Find what's positive because it is not going to help you in your spiritual life. So we want to avoid it. Also being envious of another Vaishnava. We may feel it in our heart, and it should be painful when we feel it, when we see it. It should be painful. Sometimes it gets very subtle. Sometimes it can be subtle where where we're envious, but it's so deep, it's so subtle that we don't really realize we're envious. But the more we're practicing, especially we're tentatively chanting the holy name, then Krishna's going to reveal these things to us. We're going to see envy. We're going to see desire for fame. We're going to identify it.
But I do find that, say, envy or some, it does slowly go, slowly, like
Yes.
you don't, before, like you would think the total envy would just come up, and then as time goes on, you can see it's not so, you can work with it,
That's it.
you
Because
change.
because your heart's becoming more pure. You're becoming more pure. Your heart's becoming more pure. So you're less inclined. It's just not there in so much. It's just not there in you. There's no envy because you're more full. Heart's more pure. You're more satisfied in your Krishna consciousness, and again, you don't envy anyone.
Don't need, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Vaishnava
And
is
also when you see anything in other devotees, and you can like preach to yourself, like everybody's at a different level, everybody's going along in their spiritual path in different ways. So, they will mature from that situation as well.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So Baba Chandravali is speaking from a platform of being steady in devotional service. So this is what this is naturally you're going to start going in that direction if you're practicing Krishna consciousness nicely. We should find out that we're not fault finding so much. We're less inclined to fault find. We're less inclined to be deceitful. We've got no reason to be deceitful. We're not really doing our service for fame. We should see that we're not feeling envious. It doesn't disappear overnight. It's gradual as we become more Krishna conscious, as we become more pure-hearted. This is going to be the symptoms: freedom of envy, freedom for desire for fame. But it's not easy. These things can be subtle. Yeah.
Mm.
That's it's okay. Any other questions on this? Let's have let me have my new slides here. We'll go over a couple of minutes. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 10. Oh, it's 11:30 at night here.
I know it. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, spiritual knowledge. Let me just looking at the slides ahead. So, yeah, okay. Yeah, more so misunderstanding of spiritual knowledge of one's own identity. Now, with Sambandha Gyan, misunderstandings about the Supreme Lord, misunderstanding about the process of devotional service, and misunderstandings related to subjects unfavorable to Krishna consciousness. Yeah. Let's go 2 more slides. Yeah. And we're dealing with 6 enemies. So these give birth to these 6 enemies. Okay. Lust, anger, greed, illusion, pride, and envy. Okay. And these lead to 6 waves. Okay. And all this leads to material existence, which is this: distress, illusion, hunger, thirst, old age, and death. All these causes us, all of these causes us to take birth again and again and again and again. Yeah. And to experience the lost in the waves of material existence. Yeah. Distress, illusion, hunger, first old age, and death. Okay. All right. Let's finish on a positive note. Yeah.
Yes, great.
And something about Mayapur. Today is the first day of Navadvip Paragram. And I went to Mangaladi this morning. And those who've been to Mayapur, we know the size of the temple room. There was no room to fit into that temple room. It was just ecstatic to see. There must have been, I don't know, there must have been thousands of people in that temple room. There was thousands of people still trying to get into the temple room.
Yeah.
It's so ecstatic to see how many devotees are taking part in Navadvip Parakram. This Mayapur is really ecstatic. It's finishing something positive.
Nishikant's out there.
Yeah, he's on the Parakram.
They
Oh,
do
no.
it. Yeah.
I
I
think
don't
they're
know.
doing their own one. They're doing this.
Doing their own one. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, greetings from the ecstatic land of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. As
We seeing pictures of all the places, so it's
yeah, yeah.
meditating.
Okay, so next week we continue on this where we're going to start speaking about nullification of all of these, okay?
Uh-huh.
We just mention what they are, then we're going to start speaking about the nullification of these, yeah. Then initiation. Then we go on to Bhajan Kriya. Diksha will speak about that. Causes of unsteady devotion. Unsteady devotion again. Acts that increase unsteadiness. 10 offenses. We won't cover all this next week. 3 kinds of inattention, how to stop chanting inattentively, and weeding the garden of devotion. Okay. Okay, thank you for kind attention, and nice to connect up with devotees from London. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Uh,
Thank
tune in next week. Okay. Hari Hari. Srila Prabhupada ki
Thank you.
Nitai Gaura Premanande. Hari Hari Bo. Okay, time for me to sleep. Hari Bo. Hare Krishna.